Inselmilkom, sinjuri, grazzi li qed issegwu il-programm mill-Belt Valletta llum. Sa nibdew b'intervista bl-Ingliż għal dawk li ma jifmux il-Malti u dawk li preferu l-lingwa Ingliża. Sa nitkellem ma' Dr. Peter Agius u sa nitkellmu dwar id-ġrajiet kurrenti llum. Thank you very much, Dr. Agius, for joining our program this week. I'd like to conduct this interview in English for those who are watching us and don't speak Maltese and will be voting in the forthcoming European elections.
Many thanks for the invite, and it's our duty to make our utmost to reach all the sectors of our population.
I'd like to start by speaking about the happenings in court this week with regard to the Vital Steward scandal. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, first of all, this is all about taxpayer money. So all of us, when we go shopping, when we go about our daily lives, are paying taxes, whether it's VAT, whether it's income tax, whether it's all kinds of duties. So government is duty-bound to make sure that it uses our taxes in the most diligent way, because it's our money, right? Now, what's happening right now is that we're having news coming out from the courts, from the Advocate General, from the inquiry at the technical level, saying that, first of all, that the Vitals contract, 400 million of taxpayer money, that this contract is all a fraud, that there was no actually delivery of services or products to the benefit of the Maltese people. So this is basically a whole abuse of taxpayer money. And now we're seeing also that a former Prime Minister, the highest functionary of the state, is allegedly having a share of this festering, fraudulent contract. Up to 30 million of our money, of our taxpayer money, ending up in the pockets of this former Prime Minister. So this should make us all very, very angry at our politicians, and it is then beyond belief. It is very, very sad to see that we are divided as a nation when it comes to assessing what is, to me, very clear to all, that we should expect our politicians to be held to account. Our politicians are no gods. They are people like us, and they are subject to the same laws. This is why we insist that we should uphold the rule of law, no matter whether you are a simple citizen like me, or a former Prime Minister, or a minister, or a current Prime Minister. You should be held to account to the same laws. And therefore, if there is an inquiry by a magistrate saying that someone is allegedly accused of bribes, of fraud, of corruption, that person, whoever he may be, is to render account in front of the courts. And this is no matter for politics, this is a matter for justice. This is a matter for the courts to decide and not for the political machine. And it is therefore very, very sad that the Labour Party chooses to turn this into a political battle. It is not. This is a battle of goodwilling against corrupt. This is a battle of those who want to safeguard your taxpayer money against those who want to abuse it and misuse it.
What are your views about the repatriation of money? Do you think it will ever happen?
Well, that's a very technical process. What I can tell you is that as long as I am in politics, I will lend all my support and active action to make sure that the Maltese people have their money back. Yes, it's not an easy task, given that the government has dealt with people who are now bankrupt, given that the government is making all it can to make this more complicated, more long drawn, including making obstacles to the nationalist parties' initiatives to recuperate this money. But let us not despair. We are adamant that the Maltese people have their money back, and we will keep on fighting this fight until we have a result.
What impact, in your opinion, does the corruption, this case about fighters, stewards, have on Malta as a member state within the European Union?
Of course, Malta as a member state is now subject to regular reporting, okay, when it comes to our credibility in our upholding of the rule of law, in our upholding the values of justice and transparency, right? Now, the very evident impact of this whole case, which in itself is a positive development, so the fact that Joseph Muscat is formally accused is a positive development, because this country has a history of politicians never rendering account in front of the courts. But then you have the Prime Minister intimidating the courts, those who are administering justice, in the most overt and disgusting way, putting pressure on the judiciary, putting a doubt on the judiciary's integrity and independence. So this will definitely have a very bad impact, a very significant bearing on the credentials of our government when it comes to justice and transparency. Of course, it's a mixed picture, because the judiciary itself is to be praised, is to be commended for doing its work, notwithstanding this pressure, notwithstanding this very difficult climate which government has bred. So this is a mixed report, which the Commission will take stock of in its forthcoming report on the rule of law in the Member States, which we expect around July.
Dr. Agius, although you live in Europe, you've been very active in the fight against corruption and organised crime. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I am a candidate for the MEP elections taking place on the 8th of June, and one of my key commitments is to fight the fight against corruption using new methods, with new vigour, with new energy. And this I want to do by bringing to the fore over 20 years of experience of negotiations in the European Parliament, with the European Commission, in the Council of Ministers in Brussels, in the EU institutions, with which I worked for over 20 years. So I think we can achieve more results if we build on the political pressure that was made by my colleagues in the European Parliament up till now, but also put the fight at the technical level by using all the technical tools at our disposal, including the Office Against Fraud, OLAF, who is tasked with investigating fraud in the Member States, especially those involving EU funds, including a closer collaboration with the European Public Prosecutor's Office, which is now running in its second year and which has already detected 14 cases of fraud taking place in Malta involving EU funds, including using specific EU laws. For instance, the public procurement legislation, for instance, the money laundering legislation. We must bring the fight at the technical level and be ready to go full way, because this is what our people deserve. Our people paying tax money deserve politicians who are ready to protect their money, politicians who are very ready to protect the good name of the Maltese people in Europe. And let's make this very clear. Malta is not Joseph Muscat. Malta is not Roberta Bela. Malta is not the Labour Party. Malta is the very brave and gentle Maltese people. And this is why I want to be in the European Parliament, to bring our name to the fore as a nation of brave people who are ready to uphold values and to make the best out of EU membership. Because we acceded to the EU to bring its benefits to the Maltese people, including EU funding, including opportunities, and including EU laws which are tailored to our needs.
Peter, I'd like to address the infrastructure in Malta. I received numerous messages, especially after this program, with comments. It's impacting our quality of life, our traffic, the construction, absolutely everything, and the overpopulation. What are your views about the economic model here in Malta?
Yes, in fact, wherever you look, you see the symptoms of a country which has grown in size of the population, but has not invested enough in the services that it needs to keep the population happy and served well. If you look at our hospitals, you see that people are ending up spending 9 hours in emergency services, in waiting rooms full of people, and those people tend to be also coming from third countries, because the government has this model of importing all kinds of third country nationals, to supply our labor force without a clear understanding of our needs, without an impact assessment on how all this influx of population is affecting all our quality of life. If you look at our roads, you end up spending 40 minutes for a trip which would normally take 10 minutes. If you look at our beautiful seas, you see that time and time again we have beaches which are being closed to the public because of sewage overflowing in these beaches.
But we were expecting that, in fact.
Of course, it's highly predictable.
Yes.
In fact, last year there were 9 beaches which were closed. Last year we had electricity blackouts happening, and we expect more electricity blackouts happening this year. And these are all symptoms of a government who is not really running the country in a serious way, not running the country in a professional way, but leaving most of these most essential things to be handled to the whims and to the management by crisis. To deal with this, we must first and foremost take stock of the fact that this country is indebted to the very top. We have up to 10 billion deficit now, so we don't have, we're in a very delicate and critical situation where we have the need to invest heavily in infrastructure, in our sewage systems, in our electricity systems, in our hospitals. But we are lacking the liquidity, the money, to actually invest. And this is where we must make better use of the European Union, right? I don't want the government to spend more on infrastructure without a plan. We should have a clear plan and a clear way how we can pitch into EU money to make the big leap forward for our infrastructure. For a country which is hosting now, over 150,000 third-party nationals, okay?
I hear that it's more than that.
We need to do the infrastructural investments to actually live a quality life. And the European Union, through its grants and loans, also loans, okay, including interest-free loans, including loans with very good credit rating, because it's the European Commission, borrowing money instead of individual member states. The Commission and the European Union and the European Investment Bank can play a critical role in making sure that Malta makes the big leap forward in our investments.
Do you believe that Malta is an easy gateway for third country nationals into Europe?
Yeah, it could be. The problem is that it needs to be planned. Okay, so first of all, we are having a situation where third country nationals are coming to Malta without a clear plan of how many years and in which setting are they settling here? Are they coming here for a few years? So it depends, and then there is other member states and other non-member states like the UK, which are also shaping their policies at the same time.
Do you believe that we need so many taxi drivers coming from abroad to Malta? Isn't it making the roads more congested? The food deliveries, do we need all these food deliveries, in your opinion?
No.
People are sending messages to me after this program about the lack of language skills that these people have, not Maltese, not English, and also the lack of direction. They do not know our roads. So this is causing more havoc, really.
Naturally, from a consumer point of view, when you have competition, when you have very, very high-level competition with thousands offering the same services, it can have a beneficial effect for the consumer, because getting a taxi nowadays, sometimes it's €5 instead of 15 or 20. So naturally, from a consumer perspective, there is this aspect. But there is a downside to that, and that is that without a plan, you're ending up eliminating from the market the people who entered into that profession to make a decent living. Because if you are operating the market with people who are working 12-hour shifts, for very little money, and they are competing with the Maltese people in the sector who expect to raise a family, to make a living, to make a decent living from that job, then you have a situation of social dumping. And it is very ironic that with a current Labour government, who should take care of the smallest in society, of the worker, of the small self-employed, the guy with the small business, the guy with the startup, you have a situation where you have this cutthroat competition with operators sometimes employing 10, 15, 20 third country nationals for a pittance, for very little money, and then flooding the market. This is all the outcome of a politics without foresight, without plan. And yes, in some areas, we need to go back to the drawing board and make a clear carrying capacity study. Okay? How many vehicles, how many operators should our market allow for? They are issuing licenses, hundreds of them every month, without giving so much care to our traffic levels, to the quality of employment and services, leading the country without a clear plan and without any clear understanding and care to actually those who are really then earning their living from that market.
Thank you. I'd like to stay on the same topic just to close off for today, because our time is running short. What about the impact on tourism, quality tourism? If I can quote Tony Zara, who said, better, not bigger for tourism. We don't seem to be heading this way.
Yes, everyone in the tourism sector is basically echoing what Tony Zara is saying, that we must head towards quality tourism. First of all, because with Malta, welcoming millions of tourists every year, this is having its impact on our infrastructure. And secondly, because we must take care of destination Malta. Our beautiful country, with our beautiful sea, now tragically full of sewage, with our beautiful countryside, with our amazing history and culture. This is the goose laying the golden egg. Let's take care of this goose. Let's feed this goose. Let's pamper it. It's not what we're doing right now. We're mistreating this goose. We're abusing this goose, okay? Because we are having rampant construction without too much of a plan as to the aesthetics of our country. We are having rampant overpopulation with its effect on all the infrastructure. So basically, we are ruining the Malta experience. And this is tragic. This is tragic. This is the worst thing we can do. So while the tourism industry grows, there is this overhanging threat that government's own mismanagement, is putting in peril product Malta.
In your opinion, what are the key challenges for Malta and Europe over the next 5 years? If you can close with that very briefly.
No, in a nutshell, the European Union is heading in two particular directions which will have a bearing on Malta, and where we need national champions. And this is what it's all about on the 8th of June. We need national champions to bring to the fore the national interest, the Malta interest in Europe in these two key developments. And these are, first of all, Europe is heading towards more and more tax harmonization. Okay? Malta has its own economic model which depends on our tax sovereignty, so our ability to decide our own taxes and our ability to attract foreign direct investments. So I believe that we should not give in, we should not give up our ability to fix our tax rates, and we should be careful about giving this competence to the European Union. I will be fighting this fight. I will be representing the national interest when it comes to tax harmonization in Europe. And secondly, the Green Deal. The Green Deal, fighting climate change, is very important for all of us. I'm a father of 3 kids. I want to leave a better world for them. But so the Green Deal, yes, but not at a disproportionate cost to islands. And we are an island. So we must make sure that the Green Deal is adapted to our needs and is tailored also to the specificities and needs for derogations if need be, okay, to accommodate the Maltese economy, as an island which is detached from the continent and which has its own challenges. A third point, which for me is imperative, and this is much more local, but also European in its nature, is that we have so many standards, so many European standards, including environmental standards, safety standards, where the EU has its own laws which are supposedly applied in Malta, but they are not being applied, they are not being implemented. And this is why we need MEPs on the 8th of June who have the determination and the capacity, the competence, to make sure that the standards, the rules, the laws that we subscribed to in Europe are effectively applied in Malta and effectively lead to citizen rights which we can enjoy here in the Maltese Islands.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Agius. Thank you for watching our current affairs update in English with Dr. Peter Agius, a candidate for the European Parliament elections. May I remind you that on the 8th of June, you'll have the opportunity to vote for the European Parliament elections and the local council elections. I would like to encourage you to vote for the candidates of the Nationalist Party. With regard to the European elections, there are 8 candidates. You will need to choose your preferred candidate and give them your number 1 option, and carrying on to vote for the other 7 candidates as the vote gets carried forward if it's not used by the first candidate. Should you have any comments, any queries, any questions about the European Parliament elections or the local council elections, please contact us on the number that appears on the screen. I'm Leah Hogg for Net TV.